Good morning, everyone. My name is Tomas, and yours? Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you have chosen this particular workshop to kick things up during today. How do you like the very first keynote in the morning from 10 a.m.? Good? Energetic? Yes? Overselling? No? Okay, that's fine, right? Yep, so yeah, sorry if you were expecting like that kind of style from me. I will be a little bit more maybe relaxed, but both of those things are pretty good, I think. So today we will be speaking about team temperature and some of the ways or tools, like a very practical applications on how to understand the dynamics when it's happening in like human team. Saying that maybe later, sometimes we will have like AI agents in our team and the things will be pretty easy. But now we have humans in our teams, and of course, the least reliable component of any system is human behavior. However, it's probably the biggest opportunity also, but the way how we are navigating that behavior, how we are actually able to identify risks and adapt our own actions, it's truly what matters. So this is what we will be covering today, some parts of managing and balancing that kind of engagement in the team, understanding how we as humans set goals, and also how we can weaponize and tactically apply stress, fear, and uncomfortable situations in order to mobilize people to act. Because sometimes we are speaking about motivation only from a positive reinforcement side of things. We're saying that, okay, do better, you're great, you are doing awesome. And that has its place in our motivational system. But we also need to understand that the most motivating factor of us is actually fear. And sometimes we are met with a fear unexpectedly. So today we will be covering on how to actually design fear in your team that would be not too much that your team will burn out or blow themselves up, but just enough for them to be engaged, creative, and adaptive as well. So as you can see, there's my wallpaper without my slides, but I will move my slides to another monitor then. That's Tenerife, by the way. Anyone of you been to Tenerife? Or want to? Nope. Never been, never want to. Okay, all right. Yeah, so these are my slides. Right, so these are some things that I already covered. When it comes to me, myself, I come from the background of tech. I was developing artificial intelligence before it was cool, and since it was super expensive, so it's more than a decade ago. I was leading engineering teams myself, and even though that I am not a technology guy, so I cannot code, with some no-code tools and with the help of ChatGPT, now I can. But in the end of the day, I was focusing more on the product, on the business development side of things, but I found myself often leading back-end developers, working with super smart people, like optimization experts and things like that. And in the last 5 years, what I do, I actually consult teams, mostly technology teams, like 90% of my 90 or 95% of my clients are either tech companies or big IT departments and organizations such as banks. And things that I'm sharing is actually the tools that are currently working, that are currently pretty modern. And to be honest, delivering this exact keynote, I was delivering it from Portugal to Germany, from Latvia to Lithuania for maybe 2 years now, and it's still, welcomed as pretty modern, which I actually surprised a little bit, but also very happy about. So the things that I will be sharing are actually proven tactically and deployed, right? So when we're speaking about any kind of team temperature, or when we're speaking about leadership, I believe that leadership is actually mobilizing people to solve the important challenges, which means that a leader, could be any one of us, as far as we can know how to navigate the group dynamics, as far as we know how to motivate people. And when I'm saying motivating people, I am not meaning about burning eyes and super happy individuals, because in the end of the day, if you are a leader, your goal is not to make everyone happy, because you're not an ice cream, right? Or you're not a beer, right? So everyone will not be happy. That's not your goal. The goal is to be productive, right? The goal is to meet the vision. And when I'm speaking about the leadership, of course, we're speaking about the change, because there is no need for leadership if we are doing same thing over and over and over again. It's automation, no surprise. We don't need leadership for that. We don't need higher engagement. We don't need those kind of fancy leadership gadgets in order to mobilize people. But when we are thinking about change, we need to think about those 4 items. It's mental, it's strategy, it's tactics, it's implementation. And with each of those things, usually, bless you, usually we are spending so much time focusing on tactics and implementation without actually winning hearts and minds, without actually thinking about how to prepare our mental state. And this is when each of these steps has even more steps below, right? So it's like a meta steps. We do have like a goal to create clarity, to understand how to build certainty, and also to think about the ways how we can collapse time. So even though that collapsing time sounds like a voodoo magic, but it's actually pretty simple. Well, not so pretty if you put it in the English language so much, but the idea of the certainty and the clarity, so the very first step is actually to understand what are my points A and my point B. Usually, and while working with my clients, I saw and I see all the time so many attention put to the point B. So the goals we need to achieve, what are the KPIs, what are our visions, that we spend less time understanding where we are currently at. So understanding our unique point A. So what is our current position in order to move forward? And this happens because usually we underplay with a very important thing that is called experiential learning. So I'm grabbing this flip chart. It was pretty easy because nobody during the workshop doesn't write code on the flip chart, so it was easy to grab one in software development conference. You perhaps heard about experiential learning, that we all have some kind of experience. While we are having that kind of experience, while we're having that kind of unique set of unique understanding about the world, about unique situations, the next great thing, if you want to learn, is actually to reflect. So we have a reflection. While we are reflecting, we're asking questions, so what exactly happened during my experience? What does it mean for me? Why it is important or why it is not important? If that kind of reflection goes well, the next thing is to create a plan. So what I'm doing, so in the end of the day, I'm conceptualizing the abstracts. So I'm thinking about my insights, what I got from the reflection, and then I'm planning action. In similar way, artificial intelligence works, right? Mimicking the human intelligence. When the plan is going well, then we're taking action. And we are coming back to the experience. The problem is that in order to actually improve and in order to make a change, the behavioral change especially, we need to understand that this is a cycle. We're having the experience, we're going through reflection, we're planning our actions, we're taking those actions, and we're having experience once again. The problem is, nobody has time to reflect. That's the problem. This is where things like me, right, like consultants or coaches comes into place. This is where we try to use ChatGPT and say that, act like an interviewer or act like my psychotherapist in order to reflect on our experiences. Because there is one way to learn about just listening to someone, but that's another way and much, much better way to learn by understanding your own experience. So this is where clarity comes from. This is how understanding about the current situation is important. If the clarity is established, the next step is certainty. So we do have a train, and we are putting that train on the racks to go to the right direction at the right speed, and it looks fine. Not great, just fine, right? Like me today. Fine. And our train, as it goes, we are thinking about ways how we can remove the obstacles, how we can mitigate the risk, and how we can actually make sure that we're going from point A to point B in that kind of sustainable long-term value. So that's kind of pretty easy to understand. Now, when it comes to collapse time, we're speaking about saving time and achieving our point B faster. So what are the ways that perhaps sometimes we can teleport to the final destination, right? For example, we have 2 points when we are going to a market, how we can reduce the time to the market, and what are some of the ways how we can do that. Now, the interesting part is that clarity from point A to point B, it's something that we already know. We know that after the reflection, there are some things that I want to improve, for example, in my team or my daily life. Now, when it comes to certainty and putting plan, I know some things, but I also know some things that I don't know some things. Because maybe I'm going to market, but I know that I would need like German influencers to go to that market. I haven't done influencer marketing before. That's something that I don't know, but I know that I don't know. And finally, the magical one, is that I don't know what I don't know. So how I can actually collapse time using different tools and systems of reducing the time for the final destination. And this is where a lot of interesting tools comes to the place. One of that tool is actually understanding the difference between technical problem and adaptive problem. When we are having technical problem, we're actually able to identify a very unique and very clear instruction or how to do so. Meaning that, for example, open heart surgery is a very complex, yet technical problem. You can write an instruction on how to perform open heart surgery. Please come. The guy just watched and I'm saying about open heart surgery. Is it the right workshop though? Yeah. So open heart surgery, it doesn't mean that I or you can perform open heart surgery. Of course we need knowledge, of course we need skills, of course we need expertise. But this is an instruction. Now imagine a person who is deep into like a bad habits, smoking too much, maybe drinking too much, doesn't care about his health or sleep or like any kind of well-being whatsoever. And they're coming to the doctor and the doctor says, you know, it's probably something with your heart, we need to fix it, right? We need to perform the operation. Okay, the person goes through the operation, goes through rehabilitation, everything is going well, and then the doctor says that, you know, if you want to actually don't come back to my office to have yet another heart surgery, you need to implement those kind of healthy habits in your daily life. And he says that, you know, sleep for at least like 8 hours, you know, drink water, reduce some kind of shit diet that you have, and make sure that you are following these kind of steps. Now, the steps written is a technical problem, but how a person is actually applying those steps, how they are willing to change, that is an adaptive problem. That is a problem that is much harder to identify, and we cannot write an instruction. Same goes with the team. If we have a feedback, as an example, we can have like a, sandwich method of feedback, right? We can have like 5 steps. I know that there's like 15 steps or something like that, which is crazy. But you can have that kind of instruction how to write a feedback. But then it's not what makes feedback hard. It's the fear that you are damaging the relationship with your team member. It's the fear that you will be misunderstood. It's the fear that the person will close them and they won't grow. And these kind of situations comes into play when we have adaptive problems. So as you can see, it's not only easy to identify the technical problem comparing to adaptive ones, but also adaptive problems requires changes in beliefs, changes in our behaviors, and changes the way that we are actually experiencing the world. So if this is you, and this is problem, it's a challenge, not a problem. So your relationship with the problem is the one aspect that adaptive problems are focusing to. So technical problems are focusing on the problem itself. I need to deploy a system. Okay, that's a technical problem. This is how you deploy a system. But if I'm afraid that I will fail, if I have failed the deployments number of times, I have anxiety, right? I have insecurities around the deployment. This is the relationship with the problem that I have. And in most cases, when we are speaking about managing or balancing team dynamics or team temperature, we are solving adaptive problems technical way. We're thinking that, okay, yet another motivational system will help. Yet another personal development plan will help that kind of underperformer to go back on track. And we are then surprised why the hell it's not working. Because humans, not machines, even though that sometimes we would like to do though, that we are actually changing our relationship with the problem rather than the problem themselves. And also, people tend to avoid these kind of technical problems. We have in teams called artificial harmony, things that we are, avoiding that kind of elephant in the room. We don't exactly want to move forward. We want to, evacuate us from a conversation when it comes to having some kind of, hard conversation or critical problem. And of course, it becomes tricky when we have more and more people involved. Now, the next question could be, what to do. So this is how we have those kind of different mental frameworks or mental models that helps us to solve these kind of adaptive problems. Because when we are speaking about preventing burnout, there is a great ways to prevent burnout. We can have like a debugging room in our offices, right? Which is a great initiative by this year's organizer. I highly recommend visiting the debugging room for a meditation, right? Or something like that. But it's also one of technical ways of solving things. It means that it won't solve the burnout if you will just, purchase more Xbox games on your office, or you change the coffee machine to a better one, to a like barista espresso machine. It won't change the thing that people are experiencing burnout. Sometimes, even after reducing the workload, after distilling the responsibilities, it is still hard to grasp and to get a grip of what the hell exactly is going on in my team. That's why there are so many different ways and so many different models that could work. Now, I already shared a couple of models, such as point A and point B. Which one of those sounds most interesting to you? Scoreboard, right? So the personal scoreboard is actually the way of how we are thinking about our own progress, and in the end of the day, of how we are identify, are we successful professionals or are we successful people, right? So the personal scoreboard are the metrics that we are following in order to understand our own judgment on ourselves. Because the identity is formed around stories that we are telling ourselves about ourselves. Once again, some kind of meta storytelling. Now, if I'm thinking, that I am like a good person and I'm walking down the aisle and I see the wallet, I'm picking that wallet, I'm seeing that, okay, I have like a personal ID found. Maybe I will call the police, or I will, speak with the organizers of the conference that we found the wallet, right? Because I am telling myself that I'm an honest person. I'm a good guy. I'm an honest person. I'm doing things well. Now, even though that I can say a very similar story that I'm an honest person, like I'm a good guy, I can see the wallet, I'm picking that wallet, I'm saying, oh, 80 euros, that's fine, that's cool, right? It's more than lunch. I'm picking those euros, and then I'm just, saying that the finder keeper, and I'm just moving along, right? But still, I'm a good guy. Right? For some of the cases, I can find the phone number and say that, hey, I found your wallet, the 80 euros, it's not there anymore, but at least you find your documents, right? So we still can have like a very different approaches, even though that the story could be very similar. Same goes with our different stories when it comes to performance, when it comes to what kind of leader I am. Sometimes we say that, to be a leader, I need to be a charismatic leader. But really, right? I know some of the best leaders in my experience were very introverted. They were very, not so well spoken. They were not like charismatic leaders as you may perceive, but they are like focused, they are patient, they are willing to discuss, they're willing to have a dialogue with you, and they are willing to have that dialogue instead of a discussion. Because in the discussion, the main aim is to prove the point. With the dialogue, the main aim is to understand each other. So having this kind of personal scoreboard and understanding what kind of actions should I take in order that my story about my identity would be at the certain item at a certain point is one of the ways of how I am managing. It could be things simple as that, how much time I spend with my kids, or how much time I spend improving, or how long it takes for me to achieve one or other goal. So looking at your performance holistically helps first and foremost understand about yourself, and then while understanding about yourself, it's easier to understand others. In emotional intelligence, we are speaking about two things. It's awareness and it's action. We are building a self-awareness, then we are building a self-control, right? Self-management. When we are speaking about others, we are speaking about social awareness, and then about relationship management. And it is closely relates with that on what kind of things we're putting a spotlight to. We are bringing that kind of awareness. And I hope that for today also I will bring awareness on some things that may be underseen before this workshop. So even though we probably can have our left time just for, cracking that cold one, all just managing and covering this kind of mental models, but there are so many of those that I want to take a pause here a little bit and look at those questions. I hope that you can see it pretty clearly, because this will be an exercise for you to make. Now, when it comes with the point A and point B is not your KPI. Point B is not a goal that you want to make a certain amount of money. Your point B is the way you want to live your life and the way how you are seeing your career as a vehicle. So the career is never the end goal. The career is a way to build, to develop, to impact, to create, to innovate, right? To do so many great things. And we are seeing especially the trend in the job market that before, like many years ago, we had that situations that the company is the biggest value. We are striving to, our grandparents are striving to become just partners at one company and, spend like 50 years working that. Later on, it became career. It became that career is the most important, and we might spend our whole career like 40 plus years in like maybe 10 companies, but we're still focusing on career. Now we're focusing on skills, on acquiring skills, on having different kind of, different kind of forms of how we are working and how we are looking at the workplace. So these are the questions that I want to spend at least like maybe 6-7 minutes for individual reflection. I would really, really recommend doing that, writing things down. So write down the answers for these questions. As you can see, there are so many questions, so let there be like a guiding questions more than you can, just go one after another. So think about, what is truly important for you. Think about what is happening now that shouldn't be happening, or what is not happening that you like to be happening. So the step is take up your notes, right, or take your phones, right, it's also suitable, and answer those questions. It's a workshop, hey, right? You need to do something also, right? Not only presentation. So of course, it is how are you willing to participate and how you are willing to put that. You can make a photo and probably zoom in if it is hard to see, especially in the further away lines. But think about what could be the real value for you. What could be like the milestones along the way. And your point B could be super, super various, right? Before the COVID, I was asking the same question, and the people were answering that, well, I want to work from anywhere in the world, I want to work remotely. And well, sadly, that we run through the COVID as an experience, but hey, we have this kind of remote work now being like a usual and expected job description part. So think about your point B. What is truly important in your life now? Or background music is just a speaker right after the wall, right? While you're writing, I will just share a couple of thoughts. Sometimes when I'm working with teams and when I'm working with leaders, because my majority of expertise lies within team management, not like organizational one, but team management, we see that the point B could be like achieving a specific milestone, or like having just another investment round, or achieving some kind of particular item on the list. But we rarely speak about how we are achieving that. Sometimes people put the word ethical, right? So we are achieving the goal, but we are, following the ethical norms and values. Sometimes it is adding some things that, okay, we don't want to burn out while achieving this goal, which is also important. So we can think about those kind of point Bs, how exactly we want to achieve that goal. And especially in the team, it is important, because if it's not well outspoken, if we cannot declare it, if we cannot actually say the intention, then it's very hard to optimize for that point B. Because we can say that, okay, I want to build a successful business or whatever, right? Or successful software, but how long it should take for me, or how many hours per day I would like to work. Maybe I want to have like a proper work-life balance while doing so. Or maybe not, or maybe I'm willing to spend like 20 hours per day working because it's something super important, I'm spending like a couple of weeks of super harsh focus on that. So these are the questions. I will share those slides, of course, and you will be able to have those. But these are the questions that you can ask you not only yourself, but also your team. You can ask your team members, because the best way to motivate them is to align their own goals with the goals that you are trying to achieve with your company or with your product. So that is kind of motivation on steroids. You're understanding what truly matters for your team member, and after that you have that kind of data or that kind of content, so you are able to make a decision. You are able to adjust your own behavior accordingly. But it's almost impossible to adjust your behavior if you have no idea what is the importance for that person, why that person should even care. And this is where all the problems comes from, because we notice that the people are not caring, yet we are unable to understand why and what should I do with this. So this kind of point B questions helps to put more kind of spotlight and look at the goal setting from a little bit different angle. So I would really recommend doing this exercise for yourself first and then applying it for your team. It's really great to put things in just such a perspective. Now, if we understand our team point B, we know what is happening. The very important aspect is understand the team temperature and what this exactly is. Now, sometimes when we are speaking about team temperature, we are speaking about satisfaction level. We're speaking about, how happy people are in the team. If the temperature is like at 10, so probably they are super happy. But if they are something like below 3, they're unhappy. Now, with the team temperature method, in my particular example, I'm speaking about the level of discomfort or the level of disbalance that the team feels. Meaning that we can have like a super high discomfort level, like a 10. We can have like a headless chicken running around, like super hot, super high temperature. It's impossible to focus. But also we can have somewhere around like 1 or 0, where there's absolute chill and nothing bad is happening and everything is pretty normal and everything is pretty, predictable. Because when it comes to predictability, it comes safety. Now, everything that relates with processes, tools, people, managers. I put like people and managers to the separate because, well, we know that not all managers are people, right? So from the 0 to 10, we have that kind of scale of how we are understanding. What is that kind of, not only job satisfaction, but the relationship with the colleagues, the products that we are, building, the code that we are providing, everything included. Because you see that when it comes for the team dynamic, for example, we can only make a screenshot because it's impossible to have like a perfect team dynamic for a prolonged period of time. We may want to strive for that, you might see that your team is now, it's like a perfect picture. Now they're working, everyone is communicating well, everyone is happy, and then some kind of inquiry comes up or some kind of pull request gets reviewed and bam, the dynamic is gone, right? And then we are just able to make a quick screenshot and that's it. Now when it comes to this balance and the temperature with the team, this is what is important. So let's look how we can understand this kind of disbalance a little bit more strategically and tactically. So we have that kind of disequilibrium, right? So the more person feels that kind of uncomfortable and disbalance, the higher is the temperature. And of course, we do have a time, so the time passes. Now, when we do have situations where they are too hot, so when the situation is too hot, we are unable to think properly. We're unable to make a productive decision. Great example of a tragic event is Ukraine and Russia war. When the war started, remember your first hours and first days even? The temperature, psychologically, was so hot that it was mostly impossible to concentrate. It mostly was impossible to be productive. I don't know how about you, but for us, and for me, it was like refreshing Telegram every second, right? Trying to grasp the news, what is happening, trying to think that, shit, what we need to do? We need to like go to the bunker, we need to, weaponize ourselves. What the hell we should do, right? The temperature is so hot, the discomfort is so high that it's impossible to be productive. Now, the interesting part is that while the time passes and we have like couple of days or a couple of weeks, we became productive, right? We thought for ourselves, okay, bad things are happening, how we can help, how we can support. Maybe we can donate, maybe we can donate money, maybe you can have like a car in the garage that we can fix a little bit and just, send straight to the front. What we can do, right? So the temperature dropped a little bit, but still in a very productive distress manner. So the example of war is a huge one, right? Same or similar feelings we had during COVID, right? When COVID started as well. In the very first days, especially for example in Lithuania, we had a famous weekend. Then suddenly we understood that from Monday we cannot come back to the office, right? We just can't, There is like a governmental issued decision that we cannot go. Now, of course, when you know that kind of new, it's just too hot to handle, right? You have no idea what to do with this information. It's just too much distress, it's just too much of disequilibrium. But later, when the time passes, we are dropping down a little bit to that kind of productive distress and we are able to perform later. Now, as you can see, every one of us, we do have that kind of limit of tolerance. And once the limit of tolerance is breached, it's impossible to learn because learning happens in a productive distress. This is where learning happens, the real learning, not the technical one. Because if we are learning something technically, It's like, okay, how I can improve my code in any way, or how I can make sure that my code is clean, or how I can run a unit test. So I'm just looking for instructions. So the temperature might not be so hot because I'm learning just a technical, I'm acquiring a technical knowledge. I need to build a table. Okay, I'm looking through YouTube videos, do it yourself, how to build a table. So the temperature is not hot, but I'm still learning. But for this, it's important for us to understand that there is an adaptive side of things. Now I'm sharing that kind of example with the war because we had so many examples of mobilization of people. And one friend of mine actually had that kind of Jeep car in his garage that needs to be fixed a little bit, and he decided to send it straight to the front. But now we also have the distinction between adaptive problem and the technical one, right? So the technical one is to fix the engine of the car, right? And make sure that we have like a good people fixing that and repairing it as fast as possible. Another one is to coordinate the delivery of the car right to the front, right? How to reach the Ukraine, we probably know, but how to navigate in the Ukraine, that's a completely different story. So there is a lot of technical challenges involved. That also near that it comes a huge emotional heavy load when we are adapting our view of the world, when there are changes in our beliefs, there are changes about how we see the future, there are changes about how we see the relationship with other nations or the enemies or anything like that. So there are so many adaptive things going on as well. And this is where the productive distress comes into play, even though it's uncomfortable, even though that distress is fucking stress. It's hard, but we are learning. We're adapting as a human beings, as a species, right? It's the best way for us to learn. Now, the threshold of learning comes exactly in this manner. So as you can see, when, in my example, the war started, we have that kind of too hot of the situation, and some of the problems became adaptive challenges. When we need to change that kind of behavior of ours, we need to change our values maybe, we need to change the story that we are telling ourselves about the situation, about ourselves, about other people, about our experience, while thinking and reflecting on that. And then, as the time passes, we can go to a couple of things. In the war example, we have a lot of technical problems. How to build a drone, right? How to deliver the drone to the front line and things like that. That if we are speaking not only about such as extreme examples, we can speak about our daily lives. If something bad happens, the temperature too hot could be just in a couple of minutes. When you are just paralyzed because something happened, like, oh shit, the production is down, right? And it's like a minute of stress, and then it's, okay, what to do? That's right, yeah. You can have senior coming to you or say, that's fine. I see that it's your first time, no worries, it happens, right? Who gave the access to the production for the junior? But, that happens. But there is like too hot to actually perform in some way. But then we can have that, okay, but the production is down, we do have a service to make sure that we are up and everything is smooth and running. So we have that kind of technical problem, right? But also we have the adaptive problem to actually, coaching and going to that junior and thinking that, okay, how do you feel, That's a normal thing to do because this is how we learn, In engineering, we learn through mistakes. There's just no other way, right? We all make mistakes and this is how we learn. It's normal. So we're working with the adaptive side of things. And sometimes, of course, we have people who are starting to avoid the work. So we have people that are getting too comfortable maybe in their position, too comfortable in their current seating. And we, for example, being in a leadership position on any kind of people who care about the final result, we may see that, all right, we do need to actually somehow increase the temperature, because it is needed for us to make that kind of change. It's needed for us to have that kind of productive distress. And one way of doing that is, of course, just to wait that someone damages the production, or some kind of another pandemic starts. But another way is to tactically apply it. And how exactly to do that? Now, when we're speaking about leadership or speaking about management, there's only three things that the managers does. They're creating order, they're putting the great vision to the future, and they are ensuring security. That's it. That's the whole job description of a manager, right? And it could be different orders. It could be like a different security elements, which includes not only like job security, but also psychological security as well. It could be things such as showing a vision, setting goals, understanding the grand strategic way of how we are going together as an organization. So these are three things that actually reduces the temperature. So imagine if something bad happens, like a production is down, so if we are performing these three things, we are reducing the temperature. We are relaxing the person a little bit. We are helping them understand that, okay, it happens sometimes, no worries, I got you, I am here with you, I will support you, ensuring security. This is how we will do, right? So these are the steps how we are restoring the production. So this is how we are doing. So we are, showing some order, we are creating order, and then we are showing the vision that, okay, we are fixing then, we will reflect on what you did, what kind of mistake there was, so we can able to fix it, and, in the near future, at the very least, we won't, repeat it. So this is how we are showing the exact things, that we are ensuring security, we are showing vision, and we're making sure that they are like a order, right? But we have like some kind of control mechanisms. And in most cases, we all know these kind of ways, and we know how to reduce the temperature. But the next story is how we are increasing the temperature. And we are increasing the temperature doing opposite. What we're doing, we're exploring and exposing risks. What we're doing, we're damaging order and status quo. What we're doing, we are showing that there might be no great vision, or there might be no initiative in the future. And these are the ways that are dangerous, that are risky, that they increase temperature uncomfortably. If you are unable to provide security, if there is a risk, people will tend to move and do something. They're willing to actually, get that step forward. Now, I had a number of examples in my own teams. Let's say we were building a delivery service for one of the world's biggest retailers, and our delivery was last mile delivery. We did great with that retailer. We took some awards, and we were the very first in Europe that provided same-day delivery in the city as big as London. In the world, Amazon actually did it first, but we were in Europe, hooray! But now, even in Vilnius, we have same delivery, and it's nothing super special. Like 8 years ago, it was truly unique to have, like in London, same-day delivery with like 5,000 or 6,000 trucks going around the city every single day. And then, after providing a project, we actually built a product from that. And while building a product, we were pretty new in the market, and they were like super old solutions that were like 20 years in the market. They were like having this kind of Windows 95 type of interfaces, right, and having schedules, so it was just bad. And we were just young and hipster, and we were focusing on design. So we were pretty confident on our solution. We acquired a couple of more customers, and my development team, well, some of them became pretty lazy and pretty, self-confident, because, we kick ass, we do great. And I thought to myself that, okay, it's not the best way to perform in the long term. We can be happy for some period of time, but still, we need to be productive. So this is what I did. I actually put together a document about all of our competitors and how they are actually much better than us, like much better. And I noticed that, okay, this competitor much faster completes the final schedule of the day. This kind of competitor, they help to have like a more options of different vehicles, right? You can have like a huge trucks and a small trucks and like a bike or something like that. So they have like the ability to have these kind of different types. And it was really interesting to see the change in my development team, not only from their opinions, but also from the like body language, because they were like pretty confident. Oh, just another presentation that Tomas is doing, right? Nothing special, right? He likes to talk. But while I was speaking with the competitors, suddenly I noticed my senior developers, the smile is gone, right? And they say, okay, shit, it's important. It seems so, right? There are some kind of true risk involved. And we noticed that, everyone became so much more mobilized to do something. And the ideas started flowing like hell, right? They were saying that, okay, they have bikes, right? But how many people actually ride bikes in London to deliver a service? Now a lot, right? But 8 years ago, not so much. And they were thinking, okay, maybe we need to do that. Someone from the back end said that, okay, it's easy to add another vehicle type. We can do that actually like in a week, right? Does our client needs this, right? We have a client in Melbourne in Australia. How is there going? No, the weather is great, so probably they're riding bikes a lot, right? So they were speaking about different ideas straight away, because what I did, I just increased the temperature with exposing risks. It wasn't comfortably. I was, my heart was rushing when I was speaking about that and sharing, surely. But in the end of the day, we reached the result. Of course, it was not super, happy. They were not super happy that I was speaking for that, because good vibes only. But yeah, it is important. So this is how we can, mobilize people if we want to acquire that kind of stress and fear. So this is how it goes. If we see that the work is avoided, we can expose risk and increase the temperature. We can actually show that there might be no safety net in order to increase that. Now, of course, be mindful. That's why I'm saying that it is risky, because you may find yourself in a situation where the temperature is a little bit too hot, right? It's just steering hot. Because if, some of ways of exposing and exploring risks might be saying that, guys, if we are not delivering that project, we will be bankrupt in 3 months. If that will increase the temperature for sure, right? But it also might increase the job listings of your employees' search history. So yeah, be careful, right? We need to have this kind of risk involved, but not too much. Sometimes it's really helpful. One client of mine, I was working with their IT department, and we have like this classical discussion: business versus IT. Right? So everyone has their own priorities. Everyone understands the importance of their own each priorities. But the exposing risks and showing that kind of damaging the status quo was the real example of how saying that, okay, if we are not refactoring some of the systems, like infrastructure systems, the things will go really bad after maybe 8 months, for example. And this is how it will go bad. This is the way that we can prevent it if we are actually providing and investing some time doing so. And this is the like the proposal we with IT department went to the business and actually put it a business case based on fear, based on that kind of absence of positive outcome. And sometimes we are selling the idea. We are saying that, okay, this idea is so great. These are the ways that they will improve your life. These are the ways that you should trust me. This is the way that you should trust my client or my product. This is the way, how it will take less time for you, just buy it, right? Yeah, I have flashbacks from today's session earlier today. Yeah, just buy, right? But then, when we are just selling the idea, it not necessarily means that we will reach the result of behavioral change. Sometimes some of us are more like influential, or have that kind of ability to sell or ability to make an influence. But what I like about this method, that you can have no charisma, you can have like 0 to none like super public speaking skills or whatever. But as far as you are analytical enough, and as far as you clearly understand what is happening in your company, product, or your team, all of us, even today, we can make a list of when things can go wrong and what we can actually do to make sure it doesn't. So this is the temperature, like a mechanism that can help to improve, and engage your team members much faster. And of course, even though that is risky, it's something to consider, right? So something to just think about. Now, I already mentioned in the very beginning of my session is that what actually helps us to achieve goals, what actually helps us to improve the performance and make sure that we are going to the direction that we want. I actually like this kind of quote that is pretty big, but in the end of the day is limiting our options to fail, or it is in the end of the day understanding how fear motivates us. Now, when it comes to recommendations, do you know Huberman? Yeah, of course, yeah. So if you don't, if anything you will bring from my session today, bring Huberman, right? It will be worth it if you haven't seen his podcast before. Right, so the Huberman is great, right? He's a scientist, he's a very practical one. He shares like a very scientific proven ways of how to reduce stress or understand about your own behavior. And I particularly like this episode about tools for setting and achieving goals, where they are speaking mostly about how to encourage to explore fear and to explore stress of ourselves in order to achieve goals. Because once again, usually we're speaking only about positive things, about how great our future will look like. But in this particular area, they're explaining in a scientific way of how we can do something now in order to reduce a risk of tomorrow, in order to avoid some things bad to happening of tomorrow. And if you like Huberman, I would really recommend to start from episode about dopamine. So it's a dopamine and drive for motivation. It's also really, really great. And yeah, that's just my recommendation. But now, even though that you may like or may not like the podcast, one great exercise, which is absolutely focused on understanding our fears and how they can motivate us, like very practically, because, well, yeah, we still have a workshop. This exercise is called fear setting. Anyone hear of that? Fear setting? Fear setting comes from Tim Ferriss. I actually read it once in his blog. Then I noticed like a TED talk exactly called fear setting, and the Tim Ferriss knew that from Seneca. So basically, I'm just like a third guy who is speaking about that, right? Just sharing the knowledge. So the fear setting goes like this. In order to understand how fear can help us and motivate us, first what we're doing, we are understanding and defining the fear. So why do I actually fear the most? It could be in career, it could be in our health, it could be in our relationships. What do exactly I fear? Now we're thinking about how I can prevent that from happening, right? Pretty simple, straightforward. And then if it will happen, how we will repair it, right? There is sometimes in the development teams like pre-mortem. Do you know post-mortem? Like when the things went wrong and you cannot do anything, you're just looking to that, laying body of that you used to call code, and you're saying that, it's just bad. But there is a pre-mortem when you are writing, anything that can or may go wrong and how you can prevent it or how you can repair it if that happens. Then the second part is to understanding what are the costs of inaction. If you are not taking action, if you're not actually doing things, how it will impact you in maybe 3 or 6 months, maybe in 1 year, maybe in 3 years. Maybe you have like a great startup idea and you're saying that, okay, maybe in 6 months nothing changes if I'm not doing anything. But then you're saying that, okay, my idea is about AI, so it's probably in 1 year someone will talk about this or think about that kind of idea and probably will start doing that, and then probably after 3 years they will have like a unicorn or like super developed startup with my idea. So we have these kind of conversations from time to time with like friends or colleagues. How many great ideas are just ideas? They are written on some notepad and someone else is doing them after like 8 years or whatever. So that's normal. So that's how we are thinking about our costs of inaction. Same can go with our like healthy lifestyle. Maybe if we are not changing our lifestyle to a healthier one, we may not feel any kind of consequences in the first 6 months, but after a year, maybe after 3 or 6 years, it becomes really, really clear. And finally, what might be at least a partial benefit for the experiment? At least something little, right? If I would, try to do so. If we are following the example of like, better health, we may say that, okay, I will start doing CrossFit or yoga or whatever, right? And you are thinking that, okay, I will, do it just for 3 months and see how it goes. And you say that, okay, at the worst scenario, I would just become a little bit healthier. I maybe meet some new friends, and that's just a partial, attempt. Same goes with people who are saying that, I will run a marathon, right? And okay, start with a couple of kilometers, see how it goes. If you like it, then you're just continuing it, right? So just simply putting those very easy, understandings what could be the benefit. Now, you may guess it already or not. I would ask you to start doing this exercise right here, right now. So it's really helpful to have some notes to write. Some of the people already left. They were feeling that something similar is happening, right? So please take your note physically, or you can do it on your phone, just, starting from a new line. And of course, we probably won't have enough time to do everything, but at least write one fear of yours. You won't need to share. I know that sometimes, sharing might be complicated, but at least try to notice what kind of fear you currently have and be true to yourself. What do you actually fear right here, right now, about the things that are important for you? We already talked about your own point B, so what is important actually for you? And in the light of your goals, what do you fear? If you will not achieve something, right? So what is the fear? And then, how you can prevent it from happening. Perhaps there are some things that you would like to take in order to make it still happen. And then, if that fear will become true, how you will repair it. thinking about your fears is great, but writing is even better. So while you're understanding your fears, it is also one of the exercises that is great to do separately, to spend some time for yourself. I know that in the conferences like this, sometimes it's really hard to slow down. It's really hard to take some time and deep dive because, session after session or some things are happening on the work as well. It's hard to concentrate. That's totally normal. Now, I would really recommend doing that kind of exercise for your own. You can find Tim Ferriss' YouTube video, which is called Fear Setting. So you can have this kind of, moderated and a little bit maybe from different angle explain the same method. So it's easy for you to grasp if you would like to, right? But it's really, really something I can put a lot of my attention to it, and it helped me to go through some really hard periods when it comes to changes in like career, changes in life. For example, I started consulting in the beginning of the COVID, so it's like the worst time to start consulting because nobody cares about consulting if you are not having a company at all, for example, right? So that was the worst time. But yeah, well, that was one of my fears, and I did that exercise, and it really created that kind of certainty and clarity on how I can move forward. Now, one of the best ways of how you can not only use this session knowledge, but also try to understand other sessions knowledge, if it is technical or not technical. We do have in the conference so many great sessions, very technical ones, but also we have sessions that are focusing on behavioral side of things as well. And this is the questions that I like to ask also my clients after the training, and I would like to ask you to think about, not only from today's workshop, but from example in the end of the conference itself or in the end of the day, try to think about what kind of problem do you solve, what are the hypotheses at this point, and how you would like to apply what you have learned, or what could be the action you would like to take. Now, why it is important? Sometimes we're speaking about, let's put action items on the agenda or something like that, but it is not tied to a problem. It is not tied to your fear or to your point B in the most cases. So that's why we're starting from the problem. That's why we're thinking that, okay, we do have a specific problem to solve, and my hypothesis would be that, okay, I need to improve my leadership skills. Great. What is my hypothesis at the point? If I'm able to understand my team members better, perhaps, I will be a better leader. Great hypothesis. Let's test that. What could be my actions? Perhaps I want to do one-on-one meetings with each of my team member and go through the point B exercise that we spoke today. Or I want to do something different. Or I went to the meditation and I want to try meditation with my team. Everything is great. And then after you finish, you are thinking of how it went. Do I need to develop? Is there anything to think about more? And this is how kind of quick and fast feedback loops helps us to learn. And it helps us to learn in the spotlight of the problem. Yes, it is a risk to be too biased to problem solving, but at least for that kind of fast-paced learning, it really helps. And it really helps to have this kind of great experiential learning cycle that I spoke about it in the very beginning. So understanding and having this kind of reflection and applying this kind of slow thinking in your daily life in order to learn better and to learn faster. Now, I would like to pause here. Perhaps, do you have any questions from today? Because I'm already approaching the finish. Yes, please.
So from the slide where you had mental word on it, there was a bias to action. If time permits, I would like to hear more about that.
That's a great one. Thanks. So what does it mean, bias to action? It means that we're playing table tennis between experience and action, without spending more energy or attention to actual reflecting on it. Any of you heard the book Thinking Slow and Thinking Fast? Yeah? That's a great book, pretty big one, but it's easy to read. It is speaking about different mental and cognitive biases that we have. And the book is speaking about like having two different modes of how our brains are running. So there are like fast thinking, when we need to make a decision very, very fast, when we need to make sure that it is, crucial for our survival. We need to understand that if our ancestor is going through the forest and the bush starting to moving, is it enemy? Is it a dog? Is it a kid? Is it just a wind blowing up, right? I need to make a decision very fast. So this is the fast thinking of the brain. And the another part is slow thinking. So the slow thinking is all about quality over speed. So we need to slow down. We need to actually dive deeper into the problem. And you probably also experience these kind of things while developing, for example, something, and you are just diving so deep that you are spending like 4 hours on the thing. You're just so focused. And the problem with bias to action is that we are living in the society that says that the speed is king. And the faster you do things, the better. While it could be true in a lot of cases, it's not true in all the time. That's why the bias to action speaks about that we are creating a culture in a team or in an organization where we are, crowning the speed over quality. And sometimes we need not a machine, sometimes we need a forest where we are thinking, we're going through the roads less traveled, and we are creating that kind of innovations culture, meaning that we are engaging into reflection. We're stopping and thinking. While leading my teams, I was spending sometimes stupid amount of time going and doing retrospectives. Sometimes retrospectives for our 2-week sprint were like for 3 hours. But we are diving really deep on how we can improve, really deep on how we can learn from each other, really deep on how we can support each other. And that kind of reflection then helped us to move much faster in the end of the day, and have this kind of moving quickly. Same could go with our mental health, let's say, right? So I don't quite remember the names, but it was like a guy who is coming to like a Zen master, learning how to meditate and saying that, how much of the time should I dedicate for meditation during today? Like they say that, half an hour should be okay. Right, okay, half an hour, great, okay. But what if, I have like so many things to do, I have like a very, very busy day at work, how much of the time I should spend on meditation that day? And the Zen master thought to himself and said that, then it probably be at least 1 hour. Right, because we need that kind of slowing things down. So this is my long answer to your short question. We are putting too little of the attention of the reflection of slowing down because in the end of the day, there is a great saying by Navy SEALs that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Any more questions?
Raising temperature, you were talking about exploring risks. But there were also other boxes about breaking order and absence of visions. Do you have some practical tips on these two?
Sure. I like your table. You were active. Awesome. Thanks. There was no sarcasm, but it sounded like it. No. Really appreciate it. So when it comes to the practical aspect, I can have a couple of examples from like a very day-to-day activities. So let's say if you're coming to a meeting and the people are used to you leading the meeting, you can just go to the meeting and say nothing. That's just like a very straightforward ways of damaging the status quo because people are expecting something and the expectation comes from the need of predictability. The more I can predict your action, the more safe I feel. So I'm coming to my colleague and the colleague, it's always supportive. It's always helping. It's always, being together with me. And then suddenly one day he's saying that, just go F yourself, and you're do it on your own, right? And I will say to myself, what happened to that guy, right? Something is wrong, it's not predictable that I used to be. So this is how we can damage the status quo. We are breaking the pattern of predictability. So while we are breaking the pattern of predictability, we can do many different things. For example, we can change the agenda without previous confirmation for the team. So we are going to the retrospective. People are, expecting one thing, but we want to shake things up a little bit, and we're changing that. But of course, it needs to be intentional. We need to understand how we are actually doing that. And when thinking strategically, we can have like a strategic session, or like quarterly planning is also a good way to explore that kind of breaking of status quo. If we can think about different ways of how we can not only improve the current ways of working, but even such as silly things of, if you would have like a magic wand, and you can change anything, what it could be. And thinking from that, we are kind of damaging the status quo, but in a soft way, right? Because we can have like a damaging of status quo while merging two companies. Like merging two companies, there is a huge risk involved, and huge that kind of damaging of status quo that if applied correctly and tactically, we are able to have those kind of people involved in the process much, much more. Because I have been part of some of the merges before, and when we are doing a merge of the companies, for example, two cultures, so I mean that it's not an acquisition, right? It's not that a huge corporation just buys startup, right? So it's merge when like companies are pretty similar. And when we are merging, in a lot of cases, people do a mistake thinking that winning hearts and minds is actually about making everyone happy, right? And listening to everyone and everything is feeling great. Has its part, but then we can also apply that kind of, damaging the status quo in order to create something great. It's kind of philosophical, right? But, break things to make sure that we have space for new things to grow. But it is, of course, I can answer this question with the most popular questions, answers that consultants answers. It's like, it depends, right? Yeah, it actually really does. But yeah, there are so many different ways of doing that. All right, I will be around today, so if you will have questions, do not hesitate just to come to me and ask. Also, you can add me on LinkedIn, and you can ask the question there, because sometimes, after the workshop finishes, it is just, the question comes a little bit later, so you can also do that. You will get the slides, and for the final reminder, and thinking about your point B and thinking about your vision, I would actually recommend you thinking about what is actually required from you to make it happen. And sometimes what's required is bigger than your best, which means that your best needs to get better. So this is what I will wish for you. Thank you.